Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all. This is the NFC East Mixtape. You can listen to this on any one of SB Nation's 4 NFC East blog podcast networks. That is Bleeding Green Nation for Philadelphia Eagles coverage, Blogging the Boys for Dallas Cowboys coverage, Big Blue View for those New York, suddenly bad at football once again, Giants, and of course Hogs Haven for Washington Commanders coverage. You can watch this show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We appreciate all of the mixologists for tuning in. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from BGN. I am RJ Ochoa from BTB. BLG, happy mid-December to you.
Is it a happy time for you, RJ? Are you feeling good over there?
We have a lot to get to, and we have a condensed amount of time because we have a training that Brandon did not get the notice for that I did, so I have to do the training apparently. So we're
really just throwing me under the bus.
I'm not throwing you under the bus. It's maybe somebody else under the bus that didn't.
Oh, so throwing someone else under the bus. Okay.
Yeah, I mean somebody's under this proverbial bus, but I got the invite for the training. You did not. No big deal. Neither did Pete Sweeney, our friend. So, for what it's worth, maybe I'm the one in trouble. Maybe I'm under the bus because I need the training.
I am obviously so skilled that I don't need the training.
Right. So we have a lot to get to. So I have 2 reviews from the BTB side of things. We encourage everyone to subscribe to preferred podcast network, whatever team they're a fan of. Leave a rating, write a review always, but head to someone else. Give a cross review. I have 2 Eagles fans that have left reviews on the Blogging the Boys podcast network, both 5-star ratings. That is our one ask, please. First one comes to us from Sek, that is SEK_05, titled Eagles fan here. Love the NFC East mixtape. RJ has really humanized Cowboys fans for me, and BLG is always great. BLG has always been a constant with BGN Radio, even though others have come and gone. Keep up the great work, guys. So kind of a nice general review. Next one from Lech, LECH 83. It is just titled Mixtape, straight to the point. 5-star rating. I'm writing this under the assumption it'll be covered on the mixtape. If not, I may have to come back and 1-star bomb y'all. Kidding, of course. RJ, y'all love to rave how the Cowboys set fourth quarter records, but would it not make you feel better to be able to rest your talent in the fourth instead of assaulting old men such as Matt Ryan? How many games have you been able to rest your non-first seed starters this season? So already the gloves are coming off. I imagine that you didn't even put gloves on for this particular matchup.
You don't know that. You haven't seen my hands.
I have seen. Actually, I didn't. You wiped your computer screen before we started, and you had the you went hoodie sleeve over your hand. So
yeah.
Okay.
RJ, let's stop beating around the bush. The Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the NFL, and you should be scared of them. And everyone should be scared of them. They look incredible.
They're number 1 in your power rankings. They're number 1 in my power rankings.
They should be number 1 in everyone's power rankings.
Right.
They're the undisputed best team in the NFL.
They are now number 1 in DVOA. Is this the first time this season? It's the first time in a while, at least, that they're number 1.
It's probably happened at some point this season, but so they're number 1 in DVOA and point differential.
Right. How can you not be after that big lambasting of, we'll get to that. We have to start there, of course. The Philadelphia Eagles lead the NFC. They clinched a playoff berth. They have the best record in the NFL, 12-1. My day of reckoning is in the past. Cowboys beat the Colts, but yours is upon us with this Justin Fields game. I'm very excited to talk about that. But 48-22, the final score. Do you want my thoughts first? Do you want to go first? Because I have a thought, but if you want the floor, it's totally yours.
I mean, Jalen Hurts is also the MVP. I mean, you guys talked about that on Monday. I mean, he is Jimmy. So I just recorded BGN Radio with Jimmy Kempski earlier today. It's not up yet. As we
Brandon's internet is fighting itself. I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know if
you're right. Am I back?
You're back.
Right. It froze. I didn't see it froze.
Huge cliffhanger.
That's terrible. Where did it leave off?
You and Jimmy had recorded BGN Radio. It's not out at the time of our recording, but that really is irrelevant because it's out.
Well, this really just stole my thunder. This glitch. I am suspecting maybe it was you who did something. But right. I will repeat myself that Jalen Hurts, he's the best player on the best team in football. We probably shouldn't overcomplicate it. That's the MVP right there. Obviously, you can kind of look into the metrics too. I mean, just to say he's over Mahomes, which Pete Sweeney, a Chiefs observer, did say that. Jalen Hurts this year, 32 total touchdowns, just 5 giveaways. Patrick Mahomes, 35 touchdowns, so a few more, but 11 giveaways. Also, you have to consider that the Chiefs have had to play more into the point of the iTunes, the Apple Podcast review. Jalen Hurts has missed 25 snaps due to like garbage time rest, where Mahomes has missed 11. So, that's significant. And not just that, but obviously just the Eagles having these leads and then going into the second half and kind of just running the ball and milking the clock like they were, especially earlier in the season. Everyone was like, they're not scoring in the second half. Yeah, because they didn't need to. But yeah, Jalen Hurts is the MVP. It's incredible how much better he's gotten. I can take every L for not believing in him. At the same time, RJ, I don't think the people who did believe in him saw him being this good. It's insane.
This was in no way predictable. Like it was definitely possible that he could take a leap, and we've obviously talked about that for the last year. But like this was not a leap. This was like a light year that he covered.
Yeah.
Right. I do want to say the only part of what you said I disagree with is that he's the best player on this team. I think he's the most and hear me out. He's the most influential. And if they're going to hand out an MVP to an Eagle, it has to be to Jalen Hurts. Obviously, AJ Brown is the best player on the team. Like if you evaluated him, like I would still take Patrick Mahomes over Jalen Hurts. I don't think that's like a hot take. I'm having a hard time coming up with a receiver that I would take over AJ Brown right now. And I've already taken my L on that take and written my apology letter and everything. But so that's the only, I mean, we're splitting hairs at this point. I will say I'll take an L on a tweet that's been, thank you to all the BGN fans, thrown in my face, was what I tweeted after the Eagles barely beat the Colts. And if you allow me to flesh this out, and we got to get to this game, obviously, but I tweeted that the Eagles' best days were behind them. At the time, the Eagles had just lost to the Commanders. They had really struggled against this Colts. They did look like the proverbial last undefeated team that was starting to regress and take on water and wasn't going to refine their dominant form. To their credit, to my boy Nick Sirianni's credit, they have refound that dominant form. This was unprecedented too. I know you remember on the look ahead, I talked about recent final undefeated teams and kind of how they fared against the spread and things like that. The Eagles are not showing any signs of that. They are proving to be the exception, at least at this point. And I don't know that either of us are shocked that the Giants couldn't hang with them, but that's really what that was the way I would describe this. Like, obviously they played at the same time as the Cowboys. I looked up and it's 21-0. And it's like, yeah, this Giants team they literally cannot hang with them. They don't belong in the same, group as the Eagles. There are some teams that can play with the Eagles. The Giants are not one of them.
Yeah, but I mean, like they entered this game. I thought it was going to be close until they pulled away at the end. And again, they had the best record against the spread entering this game. This has been a team that has hung with their competition for most of the season. And like I know, and I agree, they're not like quite as good as their record is. And I said that throughout the season, but still, they're a team that is currently
about the Giants.
Yeah, the Giants. They're currently a team that is in the playoff picture, albeit the 7th seed. And the Titans last week are obviously ahead of their division. Also, so the Eagles are crushing teams that are like going to be in the playoffs. Like that's crazy. That's
they're crushing teams despite like the idea that again they would take on this water because whatever. That's just what happened. So like, forget who it is for a minute. Like the fact that they have returned to crushing anybody is impressive.
And from the jump too. It's not even like this game's not close and then they just broke it up. No, like just from the start to finish, just thorough domination. Other team really never had a chance in the game. Like it's crazy. And to be able to stack performances like that, it's not just like some kind of inconsistent team. No, like there's consistency. The offense, there's no weak point. What's the weak point of the Eagles offense? Like I don't know how you can find one.
That it's missing Dallas Goedert now.
Right, and they're going to get him back this week probably. So that's insane. And clearly they can put up 48 without him. And then defensively, like everyone was like, hey, the run defense is this big issue. And certainly I'm not saying like it can't pop up again. But the past 2 weeks, they went up against Derrick Henry, and Saquon was hurt, but still, and they shut him down completely. Weren't even a factor at all in the game. So even that, which was their perceived biggest weakness, isn't looking like this big concern right now. So they're in the pass rush. They overtook the Cowboys, RJ, for the NFL lead in sacks. The pass rush has been really coming alive. It's an insane team right now. Where's the weakness? Where's the weakness on the Eagles as a whole? Like, what do you point to and be like, oh, that's a big concern. That's a weak spot. They did lose Reed Blankenship in this game, who was filling in for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who's on IR. It sounds like he avoided a long-term injury, might just miss a game or two. Although, that'd be relevant if he misses the Cowboys game. So, like, okay, safety, certainly. But, like, what else?
I would say to answer some of those points, I would say that the weakness is special teams, right? Like you look at whether it's like FPI rankings or DVOA, like that's the one thing that's like not like creme de la creme for the
even
Eagles.
That RJ has been better recently. They had their best game against the Titans, and then Boston Scott had a 66-yard return. Eagles had a punt block, but they were backed up against their own end zone. That's kind of tough situation. I'm not going to kill special teams for that. And yes, it is but still, like even that has shown a little bit of hope recently that it might not be like a disaster.
Well, you asked what the weakness is. That would be the
I
answer,
agree, but I'm just saying, like, and if that's your biggest weakness, first of all, okay, you'll sign up for that. And two, it's like they're not hopeless on that unit, I would say, based on the past 2 weeks.
I would also say this isn't a weakness. And to be clear, like if you're having to reach, right? Like at this point when you're playing as well as the Eagles are. So like if you're trying to come up with like, well, what's the like potential issue? Maybe that's a better way to put it than a weakness is like, can they play from behind? Right? Like can they storm back if they because we just haven't seen it. And like that's not to penalize
they
like
did that against the Jags.
Right. And that's true. What was it? 14-0 against the Jags?
Yeah, they were down 14-0. They also were down most of the game against the Colts and came back.
And I don't think there's any reason the Colts game is evidence of this, but like I don't think there's any reason to say this can happen. But like it is because they've just been like crushing teams. There is no like there's not a large amount of data to suggest like, oh well, look at all these fourth quarter. I think fourth quarter comebacks is such a weird stat because it's like, well, they fell down, like they needed that. But like that would be the thing. Again,
that was my thing with Romo back in the day. I'm like, everyone's like, oh, he's so good, fourth quarter comebacks. It's like, well, he's also playing poorly to where they need to come back.
There's context to all of that. But anyway, like that is the answer is like, I don't say this like in the hot takey way. It sounds like, can they come back? But like that would be the question. But if you're crushing people, you don't have to deal with it. Special teams is the weakness. This felt like the first Hassan Reddick game. I don't know. Like you were really high on him, obviously in the offseason. This felt like the first time that he made like a very, very large difference. I don't know if maybe I've just ignored that to this point.
He was defensive player of the week in the Jags game earlier this year.
The comeback. Look at that.
He is up to double-digit sacks for the third time in the last 3 years. RJ, there are 2 players who have more sacks than Hassan Reddick since the start of the 2020 season. Can you name them?
Micah Parsons.
No, 2020 season.
Oh, 2020 season?
Yeah.
TJ Watt and
same division. It's a big hint.
Oh, hang on. Oh, Myles Garrett.
Yep. That's crazy. They're the only 2 players who have more than him in the past since 2020.
What did Nick Bosa miss 2020? Is that right? Like most of 2020? Yeah. He would have been one. I would have.
Sure, but still, like that's the company. It's crazy. That's like it's elite company.
This was an elite win. I do have a question on the Giants side of things because this is weird. Now we're getting into the place where you consider these weird, like, should we rest? Like those, it's just like that time of year. Can you make an argument that the Giants should have rested Saquon? Because, they were probably going to lose this game no matter what, right? Like the Giants season in many ways is going to come down to this coming Sunday night when they visit the Commanders. Like you can make an argument that if you were going to get like the Saquon God game, it needed to happen this coming Sunday. And that could still happen, but you at least inhibited those opportunities by playing him in a game that you were probably going to lose no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think of it as like resting him and accepting an L on the game as much as like the priority is just like we need to get Saquon healthy because he's our identity. Right. So if that means taking off a week, regardless of the opponent, then yeah, we have to do that. So yes, I do think they should have been, and they kind of limited him anyway. He didn't play a ton, especially because the game got out of hand. So they kind of did that, but he shouldn't have even been active.
And that's like.
It's a neck injury. He's a running back.
People won't like look at it this way because people will be like hardo football fan. But like if like a week ago, if you had asked any Giants fan, if I had asked one and said like you can only win one of your next 2 games, which one do you want it to be? And of course, I guarantee you, most people would have been like the Eagles would. No, like that doesn't matter. Like the Commanders game is a 2 birds 1 stone for you because that's the team on your heels. You're not going to catch the Eagles even if you beat them. Whatever, like it doesn't impact them the same way it would impact the Commanders negatively because now the Commanders are ahead of the Giants in the NFC standings. At least you mentioned currently all 4 NFC East teams in the playoffs. The Eagles, the 1 seed, obviously Dallas, the top wild card, Washington number 2, and New York number 3 because the Seahawks lost. We weren't really banking on that when we kind of looked forward. I do agree. And like you said, I said on Monday Football Monday, this is Jalen Hurts' MVP to lose. I think he would have to have like a poor showing in a really big spot. Like it would have to be that Cowboys game. Yeah, like everyone, like he would have to really flounder and that would take all the wind out of his sails. And I think you'd have to get this Mahomes thing, or if the Bengals, kind of get super duper hot and things work out for them and Joe Burrow takes it. But what I do want to give the Eagles credit for is this Cowboys game might not mean anything. Like, or it might not to say it won't mean anything like we've been talking about, but they can, if they win on Sunday, they can afford to lose this Cowboys game. They still have that extra bit of room for error. Obviously, if the Eagles lose to the Bears, then next Sunday is like the biggest game in Cowboys Eagles. And I don't even, assuming the Cowboys beat the Jaguars, right. I don't even know how long it's been since there's been a game that big.
So let's set some of this up. So the Eagles, to clinch the number 1 seed, They just need to win against the Bears on Sunday and then the Cowboys next Saturday. Like if they do those two things, 1 seed is clinched with 2 weeks remaining
They
in
get
the
to
season.
14-1, right?
Yep, 14-1, done. They clinch the number 1 seed. That's the scenario they're obviously aiming for.
And they can, to that point, they can clinch the NFC East in Dallas. Like if you want the like extra bit of joy there, you know what I mean? That you can put caps and t-shirts on in the Cowboys visitors locker room.
So let's run through the scenario where the Eagles win this week. They beat the Bears. Cowboys, let's say hold off on the Cowboys. Let's say the Eagles beat the Bears, but then they lose to Dallas. Now, obviously the Eagles can still win out and win the number 1 seed that way. But that's assuming the Cowboys win all of their games, right? Which might not happen, right? I mean, is that fair to say that it's not guaranteed that they're going to win because they're 3 road games? It's fair to say
it's not guaranteed anybody's going to win out.
Right, but I'm saying feasibly, not
as of now, let me break it down. Let me get to the bluntness of this. If you're an Eagles fan, you can afford to lose one more game. If the Cowboys lose, that's another game that you can afford to lose. You get what I'm saying? Right now, you have a 1-game buffer. If the Cowboys lose, that buffer increases. Obviously, there are only 4 games left. So, if the Cowboys lost 2 or 3, you get what I'm saying? That and renders it all moot entirely. But right now, you can drop one, but if you drop that Bears game, if you're an Eagles fan and you lose to the Cowboys, you lose control. Now, you could regain control, obviously. But if the Eagles went 0-2 in these next 2 weeks and the Cowboys beat the Jaguars, this would assume the Cowboys beat the Eagles, then obviously things break that way.
So the Cowboys have what left? So they have they're in Jacksonville
on
then they
Sunday.
Play the Eagles,
and then they visit the Titans on Thursday Night Football,
and then they visit the
Commanders to round it all out.
So their the remaining non-Eagles games are all on the road. That's 3 games on the road. So again,
correct.
Reason, and especially because Washington, that Commanders game, you figure is going to be tough from a standpoint of the Commanders are probably playing for a playoff spot or at least playoff seeding at that point.
I do wonder, it's too hard to extrapolate too far out because it might not mean anything. You know what I mean? Like the Commanders might know they're in.
Depending.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So it is a really interesting
it could mean a lot though, is the point. It could be
it could.
In theory, it could be a win and in.
Or it could be especially if the Giants continue to flounder, right? If the Giants continue to flounder, then the Commanders won't. And if the Seahawks continue to flounder, you get what I'm saying? Then the Commanders will know they're in, and they could manufacture their own bye, right? They could say look, we don't care about being the 5 seed versus the 6 seed. We want to I don't know, whatever it is. We want to rest Brian Robinson, Terry McLaurin, whatever, call off the dogs and chill out because the difference between 5 and 6 is negligible to us versus the Cowboys. The difference between 5 and 1 is massive, right? Or not 5 and 6 for Washington, but yeah, I think that part is too hard to predict at this point in time. But you're right. For Dallas, they cannot lose any more games if the Eagles only lose one more. The Cowboys.
They're very fortunate they didn't lose this past game.
This has been the case ever since Dallas beat Minnesota. That's what made all of this possible. It has given them the tiebreaker over the Vikings. I guess we can segue now into the Cowboys. And in a literal sense, it was a very good week for the Cowboys. They won. We'll talk about that in a moment. The Vikings did lose. The Cowboys have needed 2 things to happen for the last month now: a Vikings loss and an Eagles loss. Now, to the Eagles' credit, as mentioned, they have continued to win out, continue to stave off any potential of losing the division or subsequently the 1 seed. But the Vikings did lose. The Vikings are now looking up at both the Cowboys and the Eagles from a tiebreaker standpoint in the conference. So it's difficult to envision Minnesota getting the 1 seed, is my point. That being said, yeah, Dallas, it was awful. It was really, really, really bad. And before the game, Laura Oakman talked about on the broadcast how Mike McCarthy, I don't know if you saw this, he showed a video to the team last week of a mouse. I don't know if she said mouse or rat, but
smashing watermelons this time.
But he showed them a video, according to Laura Oakman, of a mouse taking a piece of cheese on a trap, on a mouse trap, rat trap type of thing. And the message was obviously don't take the cheese. They did, and they can sit here and they can deny it and they can say they didn't overlook the Texans. They totally 100% absolutely unequivocally looked over the Texans, and they started slow. And it sounds stupid. That statement has been met with some consternation from other Cowboys fans, because I truly don't know how much you or other Eagles fans saw this. Houston won the toss and deferred. Dallas marched down the field, scored. All right, boom, the party's on. We're going to cover this 17-point spread. Easy peasy. Houston goes 3 and out. I told you, 17 points. You could have make it 30. We got this thing. This is Bama. And then Houston punts, and Cavante Turpin, who's been saying, I just wish they would punt to me. Calls for a fair catch and muffs it. And that was the first domino that fell. After that, they were just chasing things, and Dak Prescott threw the first interception, and it was awful. Really just couldn't get out of their own way.
Interesting.
I mean, it really was your take from last week over this week aged well. But they did have one opportunity that was a miracle. I debated in our postgame show whether or not the Texans ordered the code red. I mean, they're fighting for the number 1 overall pick here. Because I don't know if you saw the
code battle red, if you will.
That's true. I don't know if you saw the Jeff Driscoll 4th down play, but it was ridiculous. I mean, like
I saw that. I saw I mean, I'm sorry, RJ, the Cowboys lose that game if the Texans just sneak there. I mean, probably very high percentage.
That's why I'm saying, like, that's why I asked whether or not the Texans ordered the code red. I mean, but
it's insane. How do you not sneak? You're right there. You're right there at the goal, and if you don't get it, you can do it again. Like you take your chances with that.
To set things up for anyone who missed it, Dak Prescott. So a huge loss in this game. Terrence Steele, Cowboys starting right tackle, tore his ACL and MCL. And Josh Ball, who the Cowboys believed in as a viable swing tackle and who was so terrible that they had to survive with Tyler Smith to this point. All they told us, Brandon, was, oh, he's better on the right side. Don't worry. He's much better on the right side. Sure. I'm not blaming Dak, but he bumps into Dak because he gets beat. And the second interception happens. Houston returns it to the Dallas 4-yard line. And it looks like they are seriously about to lose this game. They get stops on 1st and 2nd down. DeMarcus Lawrence made one of the most incredible DeMarcus Lawrence plays on 3rd down to keep hope alive.
Dumb handoff. Wow, no reason to hand it off to Rex Burkhead.
And Jeff Driscoll just rope-a-dopes himself on 4th down. Dallas takes over at their own 2-yard line. They have to go 98 yards, or else what the awful things they're going to hear about themselves are going to get 100 times worse. And they do. And this is a classic case of multiple things can be true. Dak was incredible on the final drive. He went 6 of 7.
This is the final drive that he did not deserve. Yes.
Well, he went, but still he went 6 of 7. He went 6 of 7 for 79. Look, you
crushed the Eagles for only beating the Texans by like 12 points or whatever it is. And
I know
the Cowboys should have lost to the Texans.
They should have lost.
Again, should have lost to the Texans.
All of these things are true. Like I'm saying, multiple
Eagles
things.
Never trailed against the Texans, by the way.
That's true.
That happened.
This was an embarrassing. The Cowboys stole this win. Like they didn't deserve this win. They got it, and it's there's a lot of people kind of crushing the Cowboys for this. I just did our power rankings before we started recording. Most people kept them in like the top 3-ish. NFL.com dropped them from 2 to 6. Where did they fall for you?
I dropped them to 6. Just right. I flipped them and the Bengals. So I dropped them out of the top 5. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, like it is a huge, sort of like classic Cowboys, right? Like it is all those like, worries from the past that they had done a great job of exercising for the previous month. And when you put it in conjunction, like I talked about that Eagles Colts game on the heels of the loss of the Commanders, when you pair it with the fact that Dallas did struggle, call it struggle, whatever you want, against the Colts for 3 quarters, besides the 4th quarter domination. Now it's a matter of like, okay, who are you? Are you really a dominant team? Are you really a team that can turn it on in the 4th quarter against Indianapolis? Or are you a team that has just picked up some lucky, convenient wins against the Colts and Texans? So this week will tell us not a lot, because I don't think you can take a lot at this point. But it will tell us something. I mean, they're about to visit a hot Jaguars team and a very hot quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. So, I mean, can you get up for this game? And even if you can't get up for this game, we know they can get up for the Eagles game. Like, I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Sure.
I know that they are capable of getting hyped up and focusing and playing to a high level when they want to. But, dude, you got to do that all the time. Like, and they did it for the 98-yard drive, but do it the whole game. Like, this was – the same way I thought Mike McCarthy deserved a lot of credit for getting double-digit wins in consecutive seasons. He deserves a lot of criticism for having this team in the comfy, cozy position that they were in all week long a week ago, hearing, they were number 2 in a lot of power rankings. Oh, they're right there. This division's going to come down, blah, blah, blah. And they took that cheese. They overlooked the Texans. They thought they could sleepwalk their way to a win here, and they couldn't. And they were lucky to be able to pull it off.
This comes from The Athletic, good friend Bo Wolf. Quote, for what it's worth, December has traditionally been the worst month of Dak Prescott's career, per True Media, with lows in EPA per dropback, completion percentage, and yards per attempt. December, this might not be Dak's month, which is kind of a critical spot because Cowboys need to keep winning here to have that chance still. And I would love for Dougie P to deliver the Cowboys a loss.
It'd be sweet poetic justice. The Cowboys, by the way, visiting Jacksonville for the first time since 2006. Their last road game against the Jaguars happened in London. That's why. So it's been a long, and that this is fun for you and I. That was T.O.'s debut with the Cowboys. They lost that game.
Wow, that's crazy. What a long time it's been.
I
have a couple questions for you. Quick, what's going on with the Cowboys offensive line? So you said it's probably going to be a platoon of Josh Ball and Jason Peters. It seems like that's the expectation at right tackle. But
I was getting to that, but you were doing your like Seth Rogen voice. But anyway,
okay.
Terrence Steele. Terrence Steele, undrafted free agent 2 years ago, so he's a restricted free agent in the offseason. And now he tore not just his ACL but his MCL. Like today is December 13th. Like he may not be ready week 1 next year. You're at that point. So we'll see how that impacts obviously his contract situation, but he's out. I cannot believe that Josh Ball is still on this team. Like I hate making that statement, but he is so bad. Like he
also
offers
a bad person.
Exactly. Like he offers nothing. And I do want to say about that final drive. So Dak was 6 of 7 for 79 yards. You can argue he should have been 7 of 7 for 81, but Michael Gallup dropped the touchdown. He is not that if Josh Ball is there. I don't know if you or anybody saw this. The Cowboys for that drive said, Jason Peters, you're going in at right tackle. And like, holy crap, what a performance to just like on a whim for a game-winning drive, show up and play elite right tackle. Like there aren't a lot of human beings that can do that. So
it's
Jason
not surprising.
Peters,
given like his career, like that's how he kind of started at tackle. Like Ross Tucker always tells the story of how he was just like a tight end and they just threw him in at like tackle at practice one time and he was just like he was just like crushing dudes. Like that's who Jason Peters is.
It was so impressive. Like that, talking about Jason Peters.
Just look at him. He's a specimen. Like he's huge.
Right. But like that performance, again, talking about him, was one of the most clutch performances I've seen a Cowboys player have in a very long time. Like again, to show up like completely, totally, and he's, he talked about after the game that they just walked up to him, were like, "You're going in." He was like, "Okay, cool." Like,
what else is going to happen with like Tyron?
So that's what I'm getting
back.
to.
Yeah,
I don't know that they want to play Peters for an entire game at right tackle yet. No. Like that might have to happen. But so I do imagine they're going to kind of platoon him. They've been very close guarded about this. Now it does seem like this week Tyron Smith is going to be back. He had his 21-day practice window opened last week after we recorded. But following the trajectory of things, it seems like he's going to play this week. In fact, Jerry said on Tuesday morning on 105 to the Fan that he expects him to play. Now, will he play? Will he start? That remains to be seen. It makes sense for the Cowboys to kind of ramp him up, obviously. So I think we could see 4 different combinations in one single game from the Cowboys as far as their offensive line. Tyler Smith at left tackle, Connor McGovern at left guard. Center and right guard aren't changing, Tyler Biadasz and Zach Martin. But so Tyler at left tackle, Connor at left guard, and Josh Ball at right tackle. And the same left side with Jason Peters at right tackle. And then when Tyron is in at left tackle, I imagine they'll kick Tyler in. That's what they want to do. They want to go Tyron left tackle, Tyler Smith, the rookie at left guard. I do think your best 5, if you have to play a playoff game, obviously a month from now, is Tyron at left tackle, Tyler at left guard, and Jason Peters at right tackle. Like again, when you get like, is it ideal to play Jason Peters at right tackle for an entire game or for 4 games in a row if you're the wild card team?
You can't handle that. He just can't handle it anymore.
No, but like you can't handle Josh Ball at right tackle. Like you can't. And a lot of people have suggested kicking Tyler Smith out to right tackle, having Tyler stay at left tackle, and Tyron going to right tackle. But like all those seem like worse options. There's no option that you're going to feel great about at this point, given the injuries and all that.
Okay.
We also haven't mentioned T.Y. Hilton.
Wow,
I know you're deathly afraid.
Yeah,
appropriate because his nickname is the Ghost.
Oh, that is pretty scary.
What do you make? This is kind of an NFL
What do you make
question.
of the breathless OBJ coverage, which I said was so stupid and was so right about that?
That's what I was about to ask you. Actually, let me ask you my question. What do you make of the fact that we got OBJ for like a month, and the Cowboys signed the Cowboys signed T.Y. Hilton on Monday. So like they're talking about like we're still interested, but if anything, it seems like a 2023 conversation. Like you don't sign T.Y. Hilton this year.
Who cares?
Well, like that's my point. You don't sign T.Y. Hilton if you think Odell's going to join your team this year. So Cowboys signed T.Y. Hilton, and Tuesday morning the Buffalo Bills, who also held a visit with Odell, signed Cole Beasley of all people. So 2 of the 3 teams that held visits with Odell moving on. What do you make of that?
I mean, I don't know. I guess he's just not ready. But like, what was the point? Then what was the report? What's this all about? It's such a big waste of time.
I mean, I think he wanted to get in and wanted to get a deal, and thought the fact that this is my opinion, thought the fact that he wouldn't be able to play until the playoffs was not going to be a big deal. And I think that all these playoff teams are like, that's kind of a big deal to us. And so And the only one who hasn't made a corresponding move is the Giants, but they might not even be a playoff team. So,
right. And also sinking ship. Not sure he really wants to go there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that Odell's comment on the shop last Thursday, like people made a big deal about that. I'm sure you saw how he said he doesn't see the point in playing in the regular season. I don't know that like set people off, but I understand why some people like view that as like, oh, dude, I'm out, whatever. I mean, the Cowboys were very, very firm. As much as they flirted with and courted Odell, they were very firm in that they wanted help now, today, for this season, for the playoffs. That's why they went out and got T.Y. Hilton. And so James Washington returned for Dallas last week. He had one target and got rocked on it and couldn't hold on. But when they signed him, and he was the first external free agent who they signed, the thought was that he would kind of be their deep threat. And, it's been one game, but like that doesn't seem super likely right now. That's kind of T.Y. Hilton's thing, right? Is like a deep threat. He can still run. I'm not overly optimistic, but, they needed help. They got help. And so I'm happy for that at the very least.
All right. Very exciting.
All right, so there was no Commanders news of the week, although they are now in third place. That is, it has not changed. Before we get to the Commanders, let's take a very quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. Welcome back. While we were out, Brandon said that he had a story to tell us. Brandon. Actually, I have a question instead of a story. You know how like on Survivor, they'll get like a reward. And it's like, oh, if you guys win this, you get to go eat like pastries and drink all this coffee. I think that was last week. I've long said that like sometimes alcohol is a treat. I would not want that. I'd like if my body was like that, like malnourished, I would maybe I can argue coffee and like, but the caffeine rush and the come down would be terrible. Like I would like sign me up for burgers and pizza, like all kinds of food, but like I would not touch coffee or alcohol if I had been, out there for 20 days.
I think one cold beer could be nice. Like just one refreshing cold beer might be a nice little thing. But yeah, I don't know any more than that.
Your like inhibitions would be much more lower than usual, and then you would compromise your game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
well, also, you're just going to dehydrate yourself further, and you don't want that. So, just a lot of water. That's what I would want.
I bailed you out of not having a story. Anyway,
Gatorade. I'd go with a Gatorade. I'd love a Gatorade if I was out in Survivor. A beer when you're like really thirsty, it can hit different, and like when you're super, or like a Gatorade.
Yeah, you like mow the yard or something like that kind of beer is. Like,
you're just so thirsty. Just like it can be really refreshing.
Wow.
Commanders.
Have we talked favorite Gatorade flavors before?
Probably. I'm a strawberry guy. You got to get
melon.
The pink. Of course, we have talked about this because
yeah,
Holden has been like, of course, melon would be RJ's favorite flavor.
Yeah, RJ lives in Holden's head rent free, just so we're all aware. Anyway, the Washington Commanders did not play. Now we have nice, clean, same numerical records, although we do have the ties. But the Commanders had a great week, obviously. So we don't have a lot,
great bye week for them.
Right, didn't play, but the Giants lost, the Seahawks lost, so the Commanders now not only in the playoff picture, but firmly. They're not that Mickey Mouse third wild card team that the Eagles were last year. They are a true OG wild card team, and they have the opportunity to really put some distance between themselves and the Giants. I guess we can kind of lump the two in because the Commanders were on bye. They play one another at FedEx Field Sunday Night Football. It's hard not to kind of eat this cheese. I mean, things are kind of pointing up for the Commanders this season.
I mean, it's all about this week. Like they have to win. They have to show all this big run they've gone on means something and is legit. Be very disappointing if they lost to this Giants team, considering the Giants trending in the wrong way. The Commanders having the bye, the advantage of the extra rest, like Chase Young potentially, finally, maybe actually being back, which by the way, I just don't know. I feel like very cautious about that because he should have been back by now, and it feels like to me like they're just like trying to hide something or like hide that he's less than 100% or he's behind schedule or something. So I still wonder about that, but overall definitely I'm feeling good about the Commanders in terms of they're more of an ascending team to me right now than the Giants are.
Yeah, like they're the third best team in the division easily. So we had talked about their game for next week before at San Francisco. I think we both definitely feel like they're losing that game, right? Like
it's hard to pick against the 49ers right now.
Right. And the following week they host the Browns. And we had talked like, well, we don't know what they're going to look like. And granted, that's more time for Deshaun
I like
Watson
their chances right now. Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. Like, I think I'm willing to flop those games. Like I kind of thought they might beat the Niners and would lose to Cleveland. So let's say they go 1-1 in those final two games.
Yeah, they'll win one of those two games. Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry, not final two, but those two. If they beat the Giants this week, so they're 8-5-1, and then if they split those others, they're 9-6-1. They're in, right? Like they're definitely in. We're confident in that.
Yes.
I mean, who's their
probably.
Are the Giants their top competition, do we think? Like, I recognize that that's who they're playing this week, but whatever. But assuming they beat the Giants, the Giants are no longer a threat to them. You know what I mean? To their wild card standing, at least.
Right. But I mean, the Seahawks are still out there. What do they have left? I'm looking at their schedule right now.
Remaining schedule. They play on Thursday night. They play the 49ers on Thursday Night Football.
It's in Seattle. So it's Seahawks are historically are a tough matchup for the 49ers. They give them problems more than other teams.
But like, if you have to pick right now, you're picking the Niners. You just said it's hard to pick against the Niners.
I think it's a coin flip, though. Yeah, I agree. But I do think it's a coin. It's closer to a coin flip. It's not just like.
Let's call it a loss. So they're 7-7. The Seahawks are. And then they visit Arrowhead next week.
That's going to be tough.
So
I think they win one of those two, though.
But say they drop. So they're 7-8 at that point. We're kind of forecasting the Seahawks. If the Commanders win on Sunday, they are 8-5-1, and even if they lose the next week, they're still a game and a half up on the Seahawks, and they're obviously up on the Giants. I mean, like, there's no real other threat to them in the conference in terms of being a wild card team. Like, maybe Detroit, you know what I mean? Like, but Detroit's not
true.
But Detroit's not a threat to Washington at that point. Like, I think Washington over these this week is my point. If Seattle loses on Thursday night, and I don't know the full tiebreaker procedure, I think a Seattle loss on its own may clinch a playoff berth for the Cowboys. I'm not totally certain yet, but I mean, we'll get there as the week unfolds is what I mean. Check blogontheboys.com. But if Seattle does lose on Thursday night and the Commanders beat the Giants, I think the 5 seed is Washington's. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think Detroit is a threat to them.
6 seed?
I'm sorry, the 6th seed. My bad. I don't think Detroit is a threat to Washington. I think Detroit and Seattle are threats only to the Giants. I don't think that the Lions or Seahawks are catching the Commanders.
I agree with that. The Commanders are kind of fortunate they tied instead of losing, obviously, because the Lions do have that tiebreaker over them from the head-to-head earlier in the season.
Right. Brian Dable just did everybody a solid. But like, because right now, the only reason I slacked you this, the only reason that New York is ahead of Seattle is because of the tie right now. That's it. If they had lost because they lost the tiebreaker to Seattle,
so it was actually smart. No, it was not. Yeah, okay. I think the Commanders are going to get in unless they somehow lose this week, which would be really bad, not only from the outcome of the game itself, but just the outlook. You'd be like, vibes, oh man, right? Like that's like the vibes are way down.
you lost after a bye to a Giants team that hasn't won in a month. I mean, it would be almost worse vibes than what losing to the Texans would have been for the Cowboys. So at this point, the 5 seed in the NFC is, I'm willing to say, 90% going to be Dallas, but the other 10% would be Philly if the break goes the other way. But so the 5 seed is Dallas or Philly. The 6 seed, like I said, I'm very confident. I'm almost ready to hand it to the Commanders, especially if we get those 2 things this week: a Niners win on Thursday and a Commanders win on Sunday.
And then the 7th seed.
I think. We've danced around this. I'm willing to say that the Giants are not going to make the playoffs. I'm willing to like confirm that. Like we ate the Saquon crow, and this isn't about Saquon, but I'm willing to be willing to eat crow. You know what I mean? Like, I'm willing to say the Giants, and dude, we kind of talked about it when we forecasted this. Like, I don't know that you undo the goodwill of the first half of the season, but man, like, if you whimper out and you fall apart this badly, I mean, like, dude, like. That's tough. Like, that's a tough way. That's a hard offseason.
It is. It might actually somehow reverse itself back into being a good thing in terms of a sobering look. And it's like, okay, we do really need to upgrade some of these spots. We can't just, talk ourselves into this group that overachieved and probably isn't going anywhere long term. So maybe that's it. But it's like it's big decisions. It's what do you do with Saquon? It's what do you do with Daniel Jones? Those are like really big decisions they have to make, and it's not like they have an easy, obvious answer at quarterback, right? I mean, because where they're going to be picking in the draft is not going to be conducive to necessarily getting a top quarterback. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's not likely. So it's a tough thing. But
this was not the year to not have Chicago's pick. Like, this was the year to have Chicago's pick.
A year too soon, maybe. Looking at their final schedule, so after the Commanders game, then they play the Vikings. So in Minnesota. Which, I don't think the Vikings are amazing. The Giants can beat them, but it's in Minnesota and it's tough. And then it's also on a short week because they play on Saturday. So slightly, but still. And then they host the Colts. I mean,
to be clear, like most teams are playing on Saturday next week. Just so like, you're right. Literally, I'm just I don't want people to be like, oh, the Giants are getting screwed. Like most
No,
teams
they're
are
not
playing
getting
on
screwed,
Christmas Eve.
but it is some kind of disadvantage to play on a short week on the road and being the traveling team and having less time to prepare and then having to travel on top of that. It's just not ideal. So that's the Vikings matchup. It's tough. And then they can probably beat the Colts, but I mean, I don't know. It's probably a coin flip game. I think the Colts can win, especially with the Giants, what they look like recently. And then it's the Eagles-Giants game in Philly, which who knows?
See, that's at this point, this is what I thought about, obviously, as last week was unfolding. If you're a Giants fan, you are an Eagles fan. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, if you're a Giants fan, but like,
I like if you're that. Yeah.
If you're rooting for yourself, like you need the Eagles to run away with this, and you need the Eagles to lock up the 1 seed so that game is meaningless for you. You need that, and you actually kind of you need to root for that scenario to unfold where Dallas is locked into the 5 seed in terms of Week 18. Actually, no, you need the Cowboys to play for that. You need the Cowboys to beat the Commanders. Although,
all the more reason to be rooting for the Eagles so that the Cowboys lose and the Cowboys keep wanting to play, and then the Commanders, kind of struggle a little bit here.
So I want to talk about point differential because everybody's like, oh, the Vikings, they're going to point. They have a -1 point differential.
It's still insane that
it is insane.
They have 7 more wins than losses, and they have a negative point differential.
I agree with you, but that statement sounds like it's like supremely negative. It is negative. It is literally
it doesn't matter. Negative at all is insane.
Do you know what the Giants' point differential is? That's my point.
Yeah, it's what? It's negative, I don't know, 30 or whatever.
So the Eagles lead the NFL at +138. The Cowboys, I think, are third at +131. The Commanders, -3, respectable, kind of indicative of being a 7-5-1 team. The Giants are -33.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like they're not getting anywhere near the flack that the Vikings are for being frauds. And I know some people kind of said that. But dude, they are 0-3-1 in division. They 0-3-1. In division, miss me with this. Like
they might not get a division win. It's possible they might not win. It's possible they could make the playoffs and not get a division win.
So they are 7-5-1. The Giants are. They have lost 3 of their last 4 and tied 1 of their last 4. So
one win is a 1-score game over the Texans at home,
and that's all since their bye. So they were 6-1. I'm sorry, 6-2 at the bye. 7-2 after the Texans game. They were 7-2 and might miss the playoffs. Like, we've seen before, like 5-0 teams miss the playoffs, right? Like whatever, but 7-2, dude, like they were 7-2 on Thanksgiving Day. Like if I could guarantee you that next year the Eagles are 7-2 on the week of Thanksgiving, you would take them and be like, yeah, we're a playoff team.
Anyway,
right. That's what I'm saying. Like the fact that they might choke that away is, but to your point, it may serve as the like cold hard truth they need to like move on from Daniel Jones, whatever. I asked Pete this on Monday Football Monday, which it sounds like you heard, so I'll ask you. You are arbitrary. You are the most coveted free agent quarterback in the offseason, this coming offseason, and you can choose between the Jets and Giants. All things are equal, money, contract, etc. Who are you choosing and why?
I think it has to be the Jets. I just think they have more of an infrastructure. It's like they're they're what people thought the Broncos were in the offseason, where it's like, oh, they have a lot of things going for them. They need the quarterback. I think they legitimately have more of a case for that. What are you playing with? If you're like, who are you throwing to? If you're the Giants quarterback, who are you throwing to next year? Sterling Shepard coming off an ACL. I don't even know if he might be a free agent or not. Like who Wan'Dale Robinson. Okay. Like who are you throwing to? Whereas with the Jets, at least you have what? Corey Davis, Elijah Moore
if he sticks around, right?
Like, there's some things to work with there. So
plus you have Michael Carter and Breece Hall coming back, right? Like, and not that Saquon sucks, but
and an offensive line that's like been getting better and has a lot of like is Joe Douglas likes to build through the and a defense
and the defense,
a supportive defense. So yeah, I mean, I would say the Jets. And you play maybe in theory in a more winnable division. I mean, I don't know. It's still tough because Buffalo's really good, but I mean, maybe that's equal.
Like in the division you play, if we looked at teams as combinations, like the combination of Philly and Dallas is much more stout than the combination of Buffalo and Miami, right? Because
exactly,
I don't know that Miami's married to Tua in the offseason. Like we're kind of like we're sort of at the beginning part of that, like questioning. I know that's tough scene for you, but yeah, like I don't see how. And plus, like, who would you rather hang out with, Robert Saleh or Brian Daboll?
I guess that's true. And to your point, yeah, you could more easily convince yourself if you're this free agent quarterback that you could be a top 2 at least team in the AFC East, whereas it's harder to say like, okay, I'm going to sign with the Giants and we're definitely going to be a top 2 team in the NFC East. Like, I don't know.
I do think the Giants deserve I don't know if it's credit, whatever, but like they were 100% right on Kadarius Toney. Like I know I've already brought that up, but like they like when things like that happen, like nobody makes like a big deal about it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, but like the moment that was it a trade or they waited?
Yeah.
No, it was a trade.
Trade.
Like the moment that happens, like, oh man, the Chiefs did it again. It's like, you know,
they got a decent return. It was like what, a third or something? Like it wasn't relative to being a sunk cost. They did decent for themselves.
Well, they did spend a first round pick on him, so you have to
Right.
obviously look at that.
That's a different regime, you know.
They received Kansas City's comp pick, their third round comp pick, and the team's sixth. They got a 3 and a 6.
I mean, it's pretty good for coming in and cleaning up the old regime's mess.
Let's pick these games this coming week. By the way, you can hear Brandon and I pick every single game across the NFL every Friday on the Look Ahead, where Brandon is doing a great job as far as not only the locks of the week. He was the only person who had his leg of our same game parlay hit.
It really justifies, RJ, that vibes are real, and you have to leave.
I forgot what you were talking about for a second. But
with the Jalen Reagor of it all, you said on the podcast on the Look At, because I went and listened back, you were like, you were so excited to say this, Brandon. You slacked us at like midnight.
Yeah, I'm serious. You were like, it was literally like 11 o'clock when you slacked this, and it was like on Tuesday. You were like, and we record that show on Fridays. You're like, this is my lock of the week. Like you weren't messing around. But okay, so. These lines are subject to change. Like I said, these are as of Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central. The Philadelphia Eagles are laying 8.5 points, the second game of their 3-game road trip in the Windy City.
I love Chicago.
Justin Fields. You want Chicago? Is that what you're saying?
I love Chicago. It's a great city.
Okay. So Justin Fields and the Bears coming off their bye. Maybe Matt Eberflus helps the Cowboys out. Probably not, though. I will lay the points. I'm not picking against Philly right now. I'm very fascinated to see what the line is going to be for the Christmas Eve game, but we got to get through this week first.
Yeah, that very much will impact it. Bears are the second worst team in the league when it comes to covering the spread. So it's really not, it's not like, oh, this is a ton of points. I mean, it's really not. They have been playing more competitive recently when Justin Fields has been starting, undoubtedly, but they've also lost a lot. And I mean, I just don't think they have the horses. That was very much apparent with the Giants.
Right.
Bears very much also just do not have the horses. The Fields thing will be interesting in terms of what his mobility can bring, but
they do have more of the horses, and that's like, you know what I mean? Like if I had to like quantify the horseness that they have, like I believe in Chicago more than New York in that sense, just because of Justin Fields. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I think,
well, him aside, I'm saying, yeah,
right. I actually saw a report this morning that Chase Claypool still doesn't like have the full and like grasp of the Bears offense, which is understandable, but like, you know, tough scene, you know what I mean, if you're there. But like if the Bears cover or win, it is going to take like a supernova Justin Fields game. But again, this is your version of the Colts game. Like you have been bagging on Justin Fields.
It would only be fitting.
And it would be fitting that it is the week before the Cowboys game that would set everything up, that would pull the rug out. But I'm not betting on that. I'm taking the Eagles.
It's hard to bet against or on that, I should say, right now. Yeah, I mean, Fields, you know, he is what he is in terms of being an impressive runner recently, but he's also prone to turning over the ball. He's also prone to taking a lot of sacks, and the Eagles lead the NFL in sacks. I think they're going to be able to get to him and take him down. I don't know what you do to stop the Eagles offense, and what is Chicago working with? I think on both sides of the ball, Chicago just not very strong in the trenches, and the Eagles very much are. So I like that matchup a lot. I don't know. I don't really think. I mean, this could be a trap game from the sense of, okay, you're coming off 2 big wins and you're playing a big division game the next week. So maybe you get caught looking ahead, but I don't know. I don't really think that's likely. I don't think you talk about that at this point as being like the favorable scenario. I just think Bears aren't good. I think it's that simple. They're not good. Eagles are. Eagles win. They cover. They win by double digits.
The Cowboys are laying 4.5 points in their first trip to Jacksonville since 2006. I have a feeling you're going to emotional hedge and take the Jaguars to cover, but the Cowboys to win.
I take the Jaguars to win outright, baby. Doug Peterson is going to come through. I can't not take Doug. I love Doug, so I have to do it. I mean, in all seriousness, Trevor Lawrence has been looking better, which we're crushing.
Except for last week. Super impressive to respond from the injury concerns that everybody had following the Lions game. Right.
So, he's more recently than not. I mean, more often than not recently, he has looked better. And I believe in Doug. I think it could be an overreaction in terms of, the Cowboys almost lost to the Texans, so now they're definitely going to lose. I'm not going with that. I just think, I I don't know. I buy Doug Peterson. It's not necessarily just about the Cowboys being awful now, because I don't think they're awful. But I do think they're vulnerable. I think there is something to that. And like I said last week, I'm not scared of them. I think you should be much more scared of Jalen Hurts and the Eagles that are coming to Christmas and preparing to beat the Cowboys. But we can get there.
I'm a little bit
I would
worried.
take the Jags.
I'm a little bit worried about Micah Parsons. We didn't talk about this. Like, he was kind of invisible on Sunday against the Texans. Like, that was like the first time
he's invisible against the Eagles.
I mean, well, that it was like not invisible, but like he was, getting beat. Like, that's the difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was just like not a factor. Like he was like it was just very strange. Like that had never happened.
They schemed him out of the game. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about Sunday, but you're right about Philly.
When they played the Eagles.
So, did Philly host the Packers the week after the Colts? Was that the week after the Colts win?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. This, to me, like, my assessment of your assessment is how I felt about the Eagles-Packers game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought, like, the Eagles are showing, signs of vulnerability, like everything you just said. And I was like, I don't really believe in the Packers, but I kind of believe they could catch, the Eagles right here, right now. And the Eagles blew the Packers out. I know the Jordan Love thing made it close at the end, whatever, blah, blah. But so I'm not saying the Cowboys are going to like throttle the Jaguars, but I do think that they are upset. And I do think they're pissed off. I do think they're a much better team, obviously, than they showed against the Texans. I think the Jaguars deserve a lot of credit. I think the Doug Peterson factor certainly is somewhat troublesome, because that's a guy who not only is a good coach, but knows the Cowboys, right? Like, knows how to beat the Cowboys. We've certainly seen that at many different times. But I'm confident laying the points for the Cowboys. I think that this is their kind of bounce back. Like, it's to them what the Packers game was for the Eagles. That was kind of like, again, what I thought. And I think you yourself or any Eagles fan were a little bit interested in how the Eagles would play against the Packers. And then it was over before it started. What was it like? What was that first quarter? It was like 21-14 at the end of the first quarter. But it was over. I mean, we all knew it was. So I'll take the Cowboys. I'll lay the points. And it would be it would actually be a shame if they lost and the Eagles won, and then you set up this like whimper of a like no real hype for the Christmas Eve game. But in a weird way, like I'm pre-coping, saying like it would be all about like, well, no, like there is something to that. Like, they would know that they're locked in to the 5 seed. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they could, like I talked about, they could manufacture their own bye. Obviously, though, they would have to play an extra playoff game. But I'll take the Cowboys, lay the points. Finally, Sunday Night Football.
I think the Cowboys, just last thing on them is I think they lose one of the 3 road games.
I will say I'm more worried about the Jaguars game than I was a month ago, but I'm less worried about the Titans game.
Correct. Yeah, they're just so banged up.
Those things have flopped for me.
Sure.
But
anyway, Giants
Sunday Night Football, the Commanders laying 4.5 at home. Against the Giants.
Commanders, easy. You can't bet on the Giants right now. They're banged up as well, and it's not trending. They haven't been playing good football. Like they've not won a game in over a month or whatever. Like they're just not playing well.
Actually, today, well, for us, it was November 13th that they won a game.
So why would you bet on them? You just think they're going to turn it around magically all of a sudden? Like Saquon's going to get like, I don't see the path to victory for them. Commanders are at home. They had a bye week. They've had this time to prepare. They're trending in the right direction. Yeah, it's easily the Commanders.
My prediction for this, I'm with you. Like, I'm taking the Commanders, everything. I think there's a lot of Taylor Heineke love in this game. And I think that next Monday morning is the day that the national analysts go off on the Giants. Like it's like the release the hounds game, like for, this is embarrassing, but like, you know what I mean? Like all this gets relitigated.
I think it'll be more pro Heineke and pro Washington at that point. I think the Giants could be like after the Vikings loss, or probably more so that.
Not all the frauds. Wow. Anything else? Because I have to get to that training that we talked about. So,
are you scared of the Eagles, RJ? Are you concerned?
I'm scared of the Eagles and the Chiefs, and to a slightly lesser extent, the Bills. I'm sad that I'm not equally afraid of the Bills. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been Team Bills for a while. Like I'm a little bit bummed about this. But I will say I'm a little bit afraid of the Bills after the comment from the report. Did you see the reporter's question to Josh Allen?
No.
There was like in the post game after they beat the Jets. I don't know who it was, but some reporter asked Josh Allen, or it wasn't even a question. They said,
"Oh, I know what you're gonna say. Yeah.
This doesn't look like a Super Bowl offense right now." And Josh Allen was like, "Okay," but it was one of those like super quick responses that like scares you. He was like, "Okay." Like, okay, give me the over on anything Josh Allen next week.
If I had to go quarterbacks that concern me, it is the Patrick Mahomes, obviously, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. Those are the only 3 quarterbacks right now that
what NFC quarterback scares you the most? And just like to be clear, your answer can be Dak without like, I guess acknowledging that Dak scares you, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he can be the one who scares you the most while you're not, like, your concern level isn't high. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I think it has to be Dak for you of all NFC potential quarterbacks.
In a vacuum, Dak, I mean, because you're not attaching him, let's say, because, it's Brock. I'm scared. The 49ers are the only team right now in the NFC that give me like pause. I'm not scared of them in terms of like, I don't think the Eagles, it's not like I think the Eagles can't beat them, but I'm like, that defense, it would be interesting. I think if any team is going to have some answers for what the Eagles do on offense.
I really do have to get to this training, but I have a question. To interrupt you. Say the Lions sneak in as the wild card team, the third wild card team. I think that's the scariest path for the Eagles. Like, not to be clear, not a scary one, but like right now today, playoff game, Lions in Minnesota. Who are you taking?
Lions easily. They would be if they make the playoffs. They're going to be like what 9-10 in their last, or 9 in their last 10 games. 9-1. Sorry,
with the one loss being to the Bills on Thanksgiving that barely happened.
They were up and they could have won that game. Yeah.
So like we would both take the Lions to beat the Vikings, and that pains me to say, but I would. And so that it would be the Lions visiting Philadelphia on,
Yeah, I'll take my chances against Jared Goff.
I know you would, but like I think that's the worst. Like that's one of the scarier hypotheticals you can.
They would be they'd be frisky. They'd be tough. Like I'd probably take them to cover the spread because I'm guessing like the spread in that game would be like 8, and I'll take the points. But I think it'll be a competitive game. But yeah, Eagles will win.
All right, let's get out of here. As we leave, give us a random
snack,
a random thing you warm up in the microwave.
Random thing that you warm up in the microwave. Mashed potatoes. Instant mashed potatoes.